Hey guys, so this is a new video, a Deku what if, and I'm so hyped for. Now, today and tomorrow, mainly tomorrow since I have extra few times since I'm going to get off football practice earlier. Basically, tomorrow, I'm going to be uploading two videos, and then I'm going to be uploading two videos, right now. So basically, I'll upload, two videos on I'll upload two videos tomorrow and two videos today, so I can at least get those four, episodes or pretty much what ifs in this week, because I upload four what ifs a week. Now on the weekends, on what was it? On Sunday and Saturday, on both days, I'm gonna be uploading a lot of action figure content, like a pretty much a part series that I put on my TikTok page of making a custom Wally West figure from scratch, and a tutorial how to do it. So you guys, if you guys want to make your own figures, and as many as you want without using a lot of money, just get those. But basically, yeah. Also, I'm going to be uploading a video of me making a custom Wolverine, X-Men, Days of Future Past Wolverine figure. I'm going to get more into detail with those two videos on the weekends. But yeah, so on the weekends, guys, I'll change my upload period a little bit. But basically, I'm at least going to try to get 4 videos in each week. But also on, what was it? Also, on the other occasion, also on Sunday and Saturday, I'll only be uploading one what if on Sunday and Saturday, and about 3 or 2 action figure content videos. So yeah, so pretty much next week, two custom figures, and basically the next week will be what was it? Next week will be no. This weekend, you had 2 custom figure videos, 1 stop motion, one action figure comedy skit, and the other one is gonna be just one other what if, and that one other what if is gonna be what if Deku was Mystique's son. Now, the 4 other what ifs I'm gonna be uploading, the 3 other what ifs I'm gonna be uploading after this video are gonna be what if Pietro and Wanda or Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were in Young Justice. I'm gonna be aging them down though. Also, for my other 2 videos, basically, I'll be uploading what if Deku. Now we're uploading what if Spider-Man was in Young Justice part whatever. Basically, I'm gonna be uploading 3 other Young Justice what ifs after this video. So let's get into it, guys. Enough talking, and I know you guys came here for the what if. So let's get into it. So basically, we start our story off with, well, not Izuku, but his father, the Mandarin. Now, basically, we start our story off with the Mandarin, and Deku's father won't be an alternate version or a pretty much tweaked out version of an already existing Marvel character, but actually it is. So basically, the Mandarin in this universe is actually going to be All For One. Now, basically, All For One is going to be named, basically, well, the Mandarin. Like, he's literally going to change his legal name into the Mandarin. Now, his original, One For All's original legal name is still his name, but now he mainly goes by the Mandarin instead of One For All. Now, basically, One For All's powers would actually be tweaked. One For All will still have the ability to pretty much take abilities or powers, but he will be able to take the energy from a quirk, not the quirk itself, energy from the quirk, and power it into his body. And that would be his quirk. So basically, if you have a strong quirk, like an Omega level quirk, or some sort of quirk that can destroy the world, if he takes energy that pretty much your quirk disperses or makes, he can pretty much rearrange it into his body to basically give him that same quirk, or to basically make his physical body stronger, faster, and better. Now, basically, over this time, he's been using this ability to basically make himself younger. And over thousands of centuries, he's made himself look exactly the same the first day or the first couple of years he had his power. So basically, he would look in his 30s or maybe even 40s. So basically, he would be very young-ish looking for being, very young for being, his real age, like 1,000 years old. Now, basically, centuries years old. But basically, we start our story off. We continue our story with Ezekiel Midoriya. Now, after the Mandarin or All for One would pretty much absorb enough quirks to power his youth for a couple thousand years, and also him gaining the ability to basically, well, eventually find a relic of sorts. Now, we come to One for All, and this is where the story really starts. We come to One for All, basically going into a temple. And that temple, One for All, with his pretty much near, limitless life, he would go and find a way to, well, get some type of otherworldly power. Now, at this point, One for All would only have the same set of quirks that he had, but also he would also have the ability, he would also have the strength of about, well, All Might, and also, not the strength of All Might, the speed, and the speed of, like, well, the speed of basically Spider-Man and Daredevil combined, and basically was super precise with his movements to a point where he can dodge bullets, grab them, or even bite them with his teeth, right when they were about to shoot him in the head or something. So basically, One for All will be kind of OP, but the strength part about the whole time, going up against All Might or any other character or hero that was stronger than All Might, or a god level hero, he could go up against any other person because he was a master martial artist and also was completely powered up to a point of no return. He could totally fold anybody, but All Might would be a very hard battle for him. So for him to want to, everlasting and completely just take out All Might, he would find a way to find a relic that would give him the power to rule the world almost. So what he would do is, at this point, One for All would only fight All Might once, and then he would move somewhere else, like in South Asia or something like that, somewhere far from Japan. It would have trained himself to become better. Now, basically, he would have came to the temple and he would have found a very ancient relic. He would have found the 10 rings. Now, he would have put on the 10 rings. His quirk powered the 10 rings to actually be 1% more powerful than they were. Well, in the pretty much, I'm not going for the version of the comics. I'm talking about the version of basically the Mandarin in the movie. Now, basically, he would take those 10 rings and would have started his own rebellion, and would have taken down more and after more countries, and pretty much would have became a dictator of sorts. Now, at this point, the age gap between the current time and this time would actually be very far, because in this universe, All Might and One for All would have quirks, but All for One and One for All would actually give the user immortality both ways. But the immortality for One for All, basically immortality for One for All is shortened with the power of pretty much all for one. So basically, for One for All, the immortality would go about a couple thousand, like 1,000 years, just 1,000 years. With the other quirks abilities, it would give them immortality as long as they absorb power from other people. So basically, we'll start our story off, or continue our story even more, getting to the main juicy part, Deku's birth, or his origin. And basically, after All Might and pretty much All for One would be pretty much engraved in Japan's history of war dictators, and All for One, All Might being a great hero in the olden days, and basically him being about a couple thousand years old when it gets to current time, or canon time. Now, we start our story off on Deku's birthday, or his original canon birthday. Now, we see Deku get birthed. We see Deku, well, come into the world and his mother giving birth. Now, canon is pretty much Inko would actually be from the same village as pretty much, well, Shang-Chi's original mother, and would have the same abilities, power set, and pretty much combat skill. Basically, her being a complete just cut and paste version of Shang-Chi's canon mother. Now, basically, she would still have the same, personality as Inko, being a nice, kind mom, And pretty much Shang-Chi's mom was the same like as Inko. So basically, Inko would have gave birth to Shang-Chi, Deku, but also would have give birth to, well, his sister. Now his sister would be named, well, what was it? I think it was, the name I wrote down for her was Kendo. So basically, Deku's sister would be named Kendo, and she would be born with a quirk, but Deku wouldn't. But that wouldn't change the point that All For One wanted a boy more than anything, and it didn't matter if he had a quirk or not, because he can always give his son one. But basically, he wanted to see, and basically, All For One's powers was very powerful, but in the beginning, All For One had quirks, but they weren't strong. So he trained himself to be a master martial artist and not to rely on his quirk, because he always knew at one point you have to rely on his own body, and he didn't want to let, his biological power or his pretty much, well, strength dictate if he was strong or not. So he wanted to basically make himself stronger and become a martial artist, or pretty much a master fighter. Now basically, for pretty much the quirks, since basically quirks would have came into the world only one time. For pretty much, All Might would actually be the first user of One For All, meaning that One For All would only be passed down about 3 times. Basically, All Might passed it down to 3 other people, but those people eventually coming back to All Might after those 3 people died in wars and battles. Basically, they're using their last bit of power to find their way back to All Might and give the quirk back to him. So basically, All Might was very, shocked at each time he gave, pretty much one of his users, or pretty much one of his champions that he, pretty much anybody, if he gave his quirk to them, they would eventually find a way into Death's arms. And basically, at that point, pretty much All Might just took the quirk and pretty much swore never to give it to anybody else. But that would change later on in the story. Probably at the end of part 2, or probably at the end of part 1. So basically, we originally go back to Deku's story. And, well, his sister, his mother, and his father. Now, basically, when Deku's sister was born, they were actually born as twins. But Deku being born oldest since he came out first. So basically, Deku's sister would be a green-haired, looking younger version of Inko. Basically looking like a baby version of Inko, just with blackish green hair. Basically, her hair being split into 2 tones, black and green. So basically, actually, her hair would be split into 2 tones, white and green, since pretty much the Mandarin, or All For One, still has, well, white hair. So basically, she would be born with white and pretty much green hair. And Deku would be born with green hair, but with more permanent, or more pretty much brighter strands of black in his hair. But he would still be born with greenish, pretty much hair, just a shading of black, and his hair would be actually black strips of his hair. So basically, Deku would be trained by the Mandarin right after a very tragic event in Deku's life. Now, basically, we switch a couple years later after Deku and Kendo's birth, and basically, we switch to Kendo and Deku, basically when they're younger. Now, Kendo both of them will be about like 8 years old. Now, at this point, they would be pretty much well raised right and correctly by their parents. Basically, Deku taking more of a liking to his mother than his father, but basically, his mother one day pretty much comes to the conclusion that, he pretty much her just training her son one day, teaching her son a little bit of, pretty much, some stuff in there. Now, basically, she would get interrupted when a couple of, well, thugs, or basically sort of assassins, showed up. Now, these assassins would show up, and they would be sent by a certain person a certain, well, great-great-grandfather of a certain character in mainstream, or the main time of the canon time of pretty much, well, or basically one of these would be the great great grandfathers of one of the many people in the League of Villains. But basically, eventually Deku would find their great great grandson, and we have a whole entire type of battle or whatever. Now, basically, this assassin would show up, and he would pretty much be after to hurt Deku's pretty much father by killing his family. So they attacked, and they were given a very hard battle since Inko was very trained. But Inko eventually lost the fight, basically Deku watching and seeing her die. Now, basically, Deku would be, well, filled with vengeance, but not actually sad. He would actually be filled with vengeance. Unlike Shang-Chi, he would be thirsty for blood. Basically, him wanting to get back at the people that killed his mother. Now, basically, Deku would have pretty much still been Deku. He still would have been a very kind boy, but he still would have been thrown by his emotions to basically be obsessed with trying to find his mother's killer. Since all the assassins had a mask on, Deku couldn't find out which assassin was which. Now we get switched back to the Mandarin. And pretty much for now, I'm going to be narrating All for One as just a Mandarin for pretty much narrating purposes. Now the Mandarin would have showed up, and he would have seen Deku, Kendo, and pretty much his wife dead. Now he would try to do contacts, and will eventually find the pretty much base of operations where the assassins came from. Would have shown up there with the 10 rings, and would have straight up folded all of them. I mean, straight up just folded all of them, throwing them against walls, punching them, pretty much making holes in their bodies with his quirk, plus the 10 rings, giving him limitless power. Him actually in this canon, unlike the Mandarin in the movie, actually legit burning or like straight up like taking the support of the building with his 10 rings and making it collapse. Basically, everybody in the building just gone. Now, basically, the Mandarin would have took Deku and would have walked off. And Deku would be shocked at how pure power his father had. Now, from that point on, Deku's father would start, Deku's training from very harsh. When Deku was about, Deku was about 8. So when Deku was about 9 or 10, he started getting trained very brutally. And basically him getting trained about the same amount of training that comic book Shang-Chi. So I'm not going to be, nerfing Shang-Chi like they nerfed Shang-Chi in the MCU. No, Shang-Chi is a straight up god of martial arts. Like, he can literally take out anybody. Shang-Chi in the comics, he ripped a man's head off clean. And he took out 3 grown men in half the second of a... He took out 3 grown men in half the time it takes you to blink. Look it up. Blinking is the very quickest thing you can do with your body. And basically, he did that. He took out 3 grown men in the blink of an eye. That's just overpowered. So basically, Shang-Chi also catched a bullet with his fingers. It wasn't even about strength, it was about precision. And also, he straight up just dodged lightning on the fly. So I'm pretty sure Shang-Chi is pretty freaking powerful. Don't demonetize me, YouTube. Pretty, powerful. Now, basically, Deku would get trained more and more, and would have became the same amount of strength as comic book Shang-Chi, but a little bit powered down because he would be given his first assignment when he was about 16, right when Canon Deku was about to pretty much get into UA. Now, basically, he would get not the same age, not the same time, a year before the entrance exams and Bakugo, basically like a year before Bakugo got into, middle school. And basically, Deku would be given an assignment to pretty much track down a man that was associated with the death of his mother. Now, basically, at this point, Deku's birth or time would be very, years back. So the man that killed Deku's mother would still be alive, but he would also have a son as well. But basically, Deku would have gotten, pretty much ready and would have been, strived to actually do it, but not just run away like a coward like original Shang-Chi in the comics, or maybe in the movie. So basically, Shang-Chi would have gotten, or Deku. I'm probably gonna switch back to Shang-Chi and Deku most of the whole what if, so don't be alarmed when I say Shang-Chi or be confused. So Deku would be given a task and would have been given to go to basically, well, the far side of Japan or the island of Japan, where pretty much the main place where Deku and the UA are at and blah blah blah. So basically, Deku would have shown up there and would have straight up got into a uniform of sorts. Basically, him being given a assassin's outfit. Now, this assassin's outfit wouldn't be like the Shang-Chi outfit. It would just be a straight up just black ninja, generic black ninja outfit. Just like him wearing the type of outfit like Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. So basically, he would have shown up at the man's house and would have, well, broken in there, beaten, and Jacob just took out his whole pretty much house trying to look for him. Eventually, the man showed up at his house. Pretty much, Deku appeared in one of the corners and straight up just fighting the man through that whole room. And the man using a lot of his, old day assassin skills to try to fight back Deku. But Deku being way too overtrained and also being way more skilled than this man would have easily taken him out in the last about 3 minutes. Basically, Deku whispering to himself that he can do better, but basically him grabbing the man and throwing him on the ground, or pretty much on top of his glass table into the ground, or on top of the man's glass table into the ground. Basically, Deku grabbing one of the lamps, breaking it, and pretty much having a spear of sorts. Basically, him grabbing the man, and pretty much him about to straight up just, well, end this guy. And basically, Deku will look at the man's eyes, saying pure fear. But Deku still remembering one thing about how this man, looking at the man's fighting styles, looking at the man's movements and everything that he did throughout the fight, knowing that this man, even if it was a couple years ago, knowing that this man was old and frail. Basically, Deku didn't know if this man was actually there at the murder of his mother or just was associated with the assassins. But basically, Deku's saying he couldn't be associated with assassins because most of the assassins were murdered by Deku's father a couple years ago. So Deku was confused and didn't know if he should kill the man or if the man was innocent or not. So basically, the man said, "What is this about? This is about the olden days." Basically, him asking, "Did you kill a woman named Izuku Midoriya?" Basically, him saying, "No, I was never on any killing jobs. I was just trained into stealing." And basically, Deku making the man shut up, pretty much yelling at him to shut up. And Deku pretty much coming to the conclusion that this isn't the man that killed his mother, or wasn't even associated with any type of killing in his assassin days. But basically, Deku didn't want to take the chance, so he just, broke his kneecaps. That pretty much an overstatement, but Deku still, broke his kneecaps for no freaking reason. No freaking reason. Basically, him knowing for a fact that this man had to kill somebody. The assassin crew that killed his mother, they have to do an initiation of sorts. So basically, Deku would have left the apartment, pretty much leaving no trace behind, and pretty much him leaving, saying, hope you get some crutches." Pretty much him closing the door, and him kind of, it's pretty much yelling at himself, saying that was the worst, talk back or anything, or like the line he could possibly say. But Deku still went for it and pretty much just ran away. Actually, Deku knew that if his father knew that he didn't take the task, he would be punished. So Deku ran away, and Deku started life in Japan. Now, basically, Deku went under a new name. Pretty much, what was it? Actually, he changed his legal name into Deku, but not Izuku Midoriya. Deku Izuku. Basically, just using a new name that he just made up himself for like plot reasons. He just made it himself. Basically, he would get this name when he was pretty much on the streets, basically seeing a teenage boy with blonde hair bullying another kid that had black hair, pretty much telling him that you're nothing, you're just a worthless Deku. Basically, Deku pretty much him actually changing the word to do whatever you do, you could do whatever you want, blah blah blah, you're a hero, type of thing that Ochaku did with Deku's name, and pretty much, season, I think 1 or 2. Oshaku brought that up. That basically Deku would have taken this and would have got an idea, and his name was pretty much Deku Izuku. Now basically Deku Izuku Midoriya. So basically Deku just changed his first name into Deku. So it's a very clever, but Deku was 16, so you can't really blame him. So basically, Deku got pretty much a job, and pretty much went off the railing for a couple years. Until Deku was about like 3 years later after Deku made a life, had a job, and had a pretty shabby apartment, even though Deku had some pretty good middle weapons on his, old outfit. He ran away with the assassin's outfit. Basically, he had a lot of good materials on that outfit. So he sold some of them and got a couple got good money. And pretty much bought a pretty shabby apartment and got a job. His job was basically a type of bodyguard of sorts. Now, basically, Deku still wanted to be on top of his training in case his father ever tried looking for him. So basically, Deku was still top physical shape or mid super. He wasn't. Deku was not nowhere near superhuman. He is near superhuman because Shang-Chi is like Boo's hypersonic levels of speed in his combat training, or his pretty much him fighting, and basically Deku needs to stay on top of his game. So basically, Shang-Chi is about like mid superhuman. So basically, Deku would be about mid superhuman top physical shape that a human can possibly get without a quirk. Basically, him pretty much having a pretty good, physical shape. Him keeping up on his exercising, training, and all sorts of other stuff. Pretty much, complete with the whole entire training of the bodyguard job. Now, his bodyguard job, he only worked about 4 days a week. Basically, him just doing bodyguard gigs for one person or multiple people that in there. Celebrities, pretty much top chef cookers, and other celebrities like that. Also, pro heroes, children's, and stuff like that. So basically, Deku, did a lot of things. And Deku one day did do a training, or did a type of, did a bodyguard gig for a kid named Todoroki. Pretty much him taking him pretty much to school. And basically, Todoroki would have asked, "Why are you a bodyguard? You're so young." Basically, him saying, "I need a job." Pretty much him saying, "I took this job because it was the easiest one, and also it's very relaxing." Basically, Todoroki saying, "It's not easy. I've seen you on the news. You're the top bodyguard in Japan. You've been taking down people for years. Literally, villains have been coming after kids that are kids pro heroes. Villains going after pro heroes that are retired, stuff like that. And you completely just fold them, just take them out in seconds." Basically, Deku saying that's the job. Basically, him saying that I'm very, trained. Basically, Todoroki having a kind of a thought in his mind to try to ask Deku to train him, but him not really going into it because he had a quirk, and also he was trained in some sort of combat by his father, but he didn't really want to think about that. So basically, Deku drove Todoroki to pretty much the school, and pretty much this school would be actually the last day of private school, or expense private school for pretty much Todoroki until the 10-month art training started and they would get ready for UA. So Deku would have said, "Have a nice day." Pretty much him, Todoroki stopping him saying, "You're young, you're really famous. You should, sign up for UA." Basically, Todoroki feeling for some reason, no reason at all, just feeling connected to Deku. But for that, you probably wondering, why does he feel connected to Deku? He hasn't even gotten character development yet. Plot. Okay, plot. So basically, Deku would have thought about this, but would have just driven off. Pretty much, just forgetting about it. Now, basically, Todoroki would have pretty much walked off. Basically, him thinking it's not really a good bodyguard if he's not going to come with me. Basically, Deku being on kind of a heist of some sorts. Basically, him being on some cliffside a couple yards away from Todoroki's school, watching through binoculars, pretty much watching Todoroki through the halls and stuff like that. Basically, him being very good, actually a very straight up bodyguard. And basically, Todoroki through the whole day wasn't messed with at all. So Deku just left. So Deku went back home, started training more and more, and basically eventually to go to sleep when he found, in a letter or a poster for pretty much UA at pretty much one of his places. Now Deku would think of this and would have, well, took it in and put it in his pocket, basically thinking about it. The next day, over a couple weeks, Deku eventually, well, came to the conclusion that he might sign up for UA. But Deku didn't want to become a hero. He wanted to become someone powerful, someone well known. So if everyone went missing or his father ever went after him to try to find him, Deku would have backup hero friends trying to help him out. Because Deku knew deep down inside he was very trained, but Deku knew deep down inside that he was very trained, but he never knew that he never thought he could. He pretty much thinks he cannot, after no circumstances, actually go up against his father, since at a young age he saw his father take down a whole building just by one flick of the rings. So basically, Deku was very scared of his father, but not too scared to a point where he wouldn't fight him. But basically, Deku would have looked at the paper and would have signed up for UA. Basically, him still thinking about maybe being a hero would be a bad thing. Basically, Deku would go to the first day of UA. After the 10-month arc training, Deku going to Dekio Beach and training there. Now, in this canon, All Might wouldn't go to Dekio Beach and basically would have trained Mirio somewhere else. Now, basically, Mirio would have known about All Might, and All Might would have been the biggest hero, like way higher than the number one spot. Like pretty much for All Might, they actually made a new system. The number zero hero is actually the top. So basically, Endeavor's the number one hero. Pretty much, what was it? Hawk's the number four hero, and Bashini is the number three hero. So basically, the number zero hero is higher than the number one hero. Basically, All Might being the number zero hero since he's incredibly old but very powerful and pretty much a relic of sorts. Basically, people being very impressed of how long All Might's lived and how All Might's been illustrated, drawn into Japanese culture, statues of him that have been lasting for thousands of years. Basically, All Might becoming a type of, well, George Washington of sorts. Basically, him becoming a straight up just relic, a person just engraved in the history of Japan. Him winning wars that Japan went against, and stuff like that. Now, basically, we could switch to basically Deku after Dekio Beach training after 10 months of training. Very much Deku would get back into complete shape. Basically, him being completely trained for this. Deku would have trained himself over and over. Basically, him pretty strong, about the same strength as, Shang-Chi. Now, first of all, we're going to take a little gap here. Let me roll you through all the feats Shang-Chi has gone through, and how strong and how overpowered martial artist he is. Hey guys, so I pretty much went over all the, well, skills or powers or abilities, or pretty much skills or his powers that he has. Key control, master of kung fu, obviously. Pin comparticle, power of Pim comparticles. Literally, this guy is OP. But basically, I'm going to be powering some of the more OP powers. Key control is still going to be a thing. Basically, Deku's going to have most of these abilities, but not, most of the OP abilities. Pressure point control, complete control over his body. That's a given. Master of senses, yep. And a bunch of other abilities. Key control, master of kung fu, obviously. Power of pin particles. I'm actually not gonna give him that power. Kung fu army. I am actually gonna give him that power actually. And pretty much, yeah. So basically, kung fu army, master senses, chi control, pretty much all that power, complete control over his body, all this other stuff. Warrior at peace, Might give him that power later on. Master of Weapons, yep, could give him that power as well. And multiple others. So basically, those powers I just listed he's gonna have. Just them being very powered up. But the same skill as Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi is is a pretty OP fighter and ranked the best combat fighter in Marvel Comics, right after a couple others. But in my opinion, I feel like Shang-Chi can beat anybody, including Spider-Man on his best day. I feel like Shang-Chi can totally just whoop Spider-Man, even with the symbiote suit, or even Spider-Man with the current symbiote. So we switched to Deku. We switched to Deku going to UA the next day, or pretty much the first day of UA. Basically, him going into there and getting ready. Now, basically, Deku would show up in his, uniform. Basically, him having his pretty much jacket and everything on, just the sleeves rolled up, and him having pretty much Chinese beads on his arms, and pretty much him having 2 gold rings on each fingers, his ring finger and also his middle fingers on each hand. Now, basically, pretty much, Shang-Chi would have showed up to class, or Deku would have shown up to class. Basically, him getting in the seat, and pretty much them getting ready to, get started. Now, basically, Deku would have shown up to school, and would have shown up there, basically, him sitting down, and him seeing a blonde-haired boy. The same boy that he saw a couple years ago. 3 years ago, to be exact. Now, basically, pretty much Bakugo would have sit down, basically scoffing, and pretty much him just putting his feet on the chair. Now, Ida would come out of nowhere and be a total class pet, just saying you can't do that, blah blah blah. Basically, Bakugo saying the same type of stick up your butt joke. Pretty much him, just anger, just straight up, just pretty much just joking with Ida. Now, basically, Deku would really not, really just not, want to get into this whole type of situation, and just would have, stayed back and pretty much would have started meditating. Now, basically, Deku would be interrupted when basically Ochaku pretty much talks to him. Now, basically, you're probably wondering, why is Deku not taking the entry exams yet? Or, the pretty much anything. Now, basically, Deku would actually find a way to basically get some services, because he did, he was friends with some pro heroes or retired pro heroes, and also very famous pro heroes back in the olden days, so he did bodyguard them very well. They actually gave in a lot of, pretty much recommendations to let Deku get into UA. So Deku got a recommendation to UA. So basically, Deku would have talked to Chaku. Basically, Chaku just being attracted to Deku, just wanted to talk to him. Now, Deku would have pretty much talked to her back and forth, but Deku would find another girl that he was actually more interested in. Pretty much Momue Arozu. Now, basically, Deku would be very, pretty much very excited by this. But Deku would look up, seeing another girl come into class, seeing, a very familiar face. A girl with white and green hair. Now, Deku would be confused, but wouldn't think anything of it, just thinking it's pretty much a random miss, since he didn't want to, continue reality that maybe his sister's here, but no. So Deku would just, scoff that off, or just brushed it off. Then basically, Azawa would have came out of nowhere, and his whole entire sleeping bag thing, and would have told them that he took 10 minutes to quiet down, saying that it took longer than last class. Now, basically, he would have talked to all of them, and basically would have told them to go outside for quirk assessments. Pretty much him getting ready. Now, Deku gets told to throw the ball first. Pretty much Deku grabbing the ball, and him chucking it pretty far, about the same length as a football field. Now, basically, about the same length as about 1.5 football fields long. Now, basically, Deku would get a pretty good throw overall, and basically would have gotten pretty good. Now, so basically, Deku would have pretty much thrown the ball pretty far. Now, he gets switched on to the rest of the class, and they get pretty far. And the girl with white and green hair grabs it and chucks it pretty far. Pretty much them seeing green type of energy blast off from her hand. Now, basically, blasting the ball out of the atmosphere all the way to, directly towards the sun. Now, basically, the ball would go pretty far Zawa getting kind of, impressed, seeing that it was thrown pretty far and incredibly fast. Now, basically, this girl's quirk would be energy, just pure, just named energy. Basically, she could absorb the radiation or any type of energy, even physical kinetic energy, but mainly, traditional energy like pretty much electricity, solar beams, radiation, stuff like that. She can absorb it and redirect it in her own type of energy. Some sort of energy near pretty much energy very similar to the Ten Rings. Basically, her being able to blast or use her energy in rope constructs and pretty much constructs like the Green Lantern ring, making swords, pretty much avatars with swords, making giant hologram type energy snakes, pretty much what was it, cats, stuff like that. Pretty much her abilities being able to use energy in green forms, basically her being able to mimic the same abilities as a Green Lantern ring, and also being able to mimic other abilities like being able to absorb energy just by absorbing energy. So if somebody has an energy quirk and they were charging up electricity, deck pretty much, she could just run up to them, grab them, and absorb their energy from them, and they gotta wait or like pretty much just pass out. Now basically, she's also able to absorb energy. The most energy she can absorb now, pretty much she can absorb about a whole entire, pretty much one half. Like if you split New York in two, she can absorb the other half's complete energy, and pretty much she can also absorb kinetic energy, like I said before, but it's very weak and unlike her other, powers of absorbing electricity, radiation, solar waves, so like that. So basically, she has to absorb at least about the amount of energy for her to pull off flying or straight up just shooting pure raw energy towards somebody will have to take about the same energy that it takes a person to basically the same amount of energy that it takes for pretty much she has to absorb enough energy to basically overpower Godzilla's pretty much blast. So basically she has to absorb a lot of energy. Pretty much she does it in small ways over the years, basically her absorbing that. But the quickest way for her to get that much energy is for her to just run up straight up towards a pretty much generator or multiple generators a day or like an hour of a day and just absorb them over and over and over again. Or she, if it was possible, she could just get thrown into the sun, absorb all that energy, and fly out. Basically, her being very, being very resilient. Her pretty much kinetic energy absorption giving her a type of pretty much invulnerability, but it can easily be overpowered by her getting, hit by a rhino type of force or a plane type of force or just even like a Detroit smash or plus ultra type of smash. Pretty much she can't really absorb a lot of kinetic energy like something like a Superman or a Hulk type of punch. So basically, her quirk would be very powerful, and basically she would actually flee from pretty much the Mandarin essay was Daku, and this girl. You probably guys already guessed it, and I already said it like earlier. Pretty much, this is going to be pretty much Shang-Chi's brother, Shang-Chi's sister, Kendo. And basically, Kendo gets the best score out of all of them, and basically, it's a pretty good score. Now, basically, for a long jump, Deku aces it pretty quickly. For pretty much Kendo, she uses her energy absorption or her energy powers in her legs to boost herself forwards over the sandpit. For the race, Deku wins it pretty quickly, getting in pretty good place, tying with Ida actually. And for pretty much her, she was like right behind Deku, her using her powers to boost her legs and pretty much absorb them or pretty much boost them with energy to make her running speed faster. And pretty much her mimicking a type of, flash type green lightning behind her legs. Now basically, for the rest of the thing, now we probably wondering I already described how she looked like a teenage version of Inko, but basically, the closest thing I can get like canon accurate, probably the same type of build as the canon Kendo in the pretty much, My Hero season or My Hero, pretty much thing. Now, basically, she has the same type of build as Kendo, canon Kendo, but a little bit more slimmer, and more Inko-ish, you know what I mean? But yeah, so basically, Deku, Deku after the grip test strength, Deku get pretty good. Kendo get pretty good as well, and they would get pretty good scores. Them getting about Deku getting first place, pretty much her getting second place, and pretty much everybody else getting the scores but lowered down 3 times. Now basically, most of everybody was kind of scared that he was going to get booted off. But as Alice said that, earlier when he said that, he's going to expel anybody that didn't do their best, he told them that he was just joking and he just wanted to see them at their best. And he would have told them that it's time to go, pretty much him handing them syllabus and telling them to leave. Basically, Deku would have left and he would have ran into Kendo, basically asking Kendo, why are you here? They would have been talking and Kendo would have said, why are you here? Pretty much her saying that I waited for you. I thought you were going to come back, but you didn't. So, after months and months, I left, and I started a new life, somewhere in America. Then I came to Japan, and then I heard of a bodyguard that used ancient kung fu to, protect his employers, and I knew that was you. Because there's not a lot of people that know ancient kung fu other than Father and the other hero in Japan. Basically, Deku's saying, enough is enough. Go home. Pretty much her saying, go home. There's no home left. Mom's dead. Dad's been back on the road of complete world domination. And you left me. I'm not going until I become a hero. I graduate here. And, before I become a very known person. So basically, she leaves and just straight up leaves Deku there, dry mouth. Basically, him being very, shocked. But basically, Deku looking backwards, seeing pretty much Momo listening to the whole thing. Basically, Momo not listening to most of the thing, just pretty much coming to the end, where basically him arguing with pretty much, his sister. Basically, her coming towards him and saying, are you okay? What's going on with your family life? Basically, Deku saying, it's okay. Basically, him blushing a little bit, him talking more and more Momo. Basically, Deku trying to, flirt with Momo. Guys, basically, Momo would feel slightly attracted to Deku, catching up on the whole entire flirting thing. Now, she would have winked at Deku, blushed, and would have walked away saying, see you tomorrow. And pretty much Deku getting kind of, excited by this. But him just brushing it off, him getting ready to go home. Basically, Momo catching her ride and going home. Deku would have gotten his, backpack and stuff and would have started to head home. Or to his shabby, very expensive, good penthouse. Now, basically, he was about to leave when out of nowhere, he heard stomping. Now, since Deku has all the abilities of Shang-Chi, he also has his complete mastery over senses, pretty much all sorts of other stuff that I just listed a couple minutes ago. And basically, he would have sensed something, in the air, and that's basically Shang-Chi can, sense vibrations in the air. And he senses this, and he realizes that it's a bunch of people just coming towards him, right in front of him. At this point, Deku was right at the entrance, or out of the entrance of the school, looking towards pretty much forest or bush area. Now, Deku was looking closer, trying to find out who was coming, when out of nowhere, a shuriken flamed out of the bushes onto Deku. Basically, Deku dodging it very quickly and easily. Basically, him getting back into a fighting position and taking out 2 steel nunchucks. Basically, Deku being prepared for any type of stuff at all times. Him having any type of weapon, or just him being ready to fight at any time. Basically, him being prepared anytime, and I mean anytime. Literally, Deku can be an elderly man on a chair, and he'll be prepared to fight. Literally. Basically, that's Deku's motto. If you aren't prepared, you shouldn't be prepared. Literally, if you aren't prepared, you're dead. That's his mindset. So basically, Deku gets to pretty much a fighting position and gets ready to fight, when a bunch of a barrage of just straight up shurikens, knives, and all sorts of other Japanese throwing weapons start flying towards Deku. Deku dodges them all quickly, very precisely, kind of like Spider-Man with the Goblin, pretty much the Goblin shurikens that Green Lantern threw with Spider-Man doing I think Bodyguard trilogy. Basically, him just dodging it really quickly and really easily. Now he would have landed down, not even breaking a sweat, and him being back into a fighting position. Him looking behind him, seeing a whole entire like art gallery of shurikens just plastered behind him on trees, windows, buildings. Oh, the building or the wall behind him, and also like a couple of motorcycles back and forth in the background. And basically, Deku would have gotten in another fighting position and would have got ready. And basically, Deku getting more into the fight. Now, basically, they would have charged out of the bushes, and them having pretty much a type of just generic black ninja outfits. Basically, them running towards Deku at full speed, and them being trained about as trained enough as basically any type of black belt martial artist at your local basically pretty much karate class. Basically, they're just being trained enough to take on a man very quickly. Basically, them not being on the same level as Deku though. Now they would have started barraging Deku, and these would have been quirk ninjas. Now the Mandarin, or all for one for narrating representing Mandarin, the Mandarin would have trained all these people and would have found and specifically gone after people with the same quirk and would have pretty much the same quirk, the same build, and the same body. Basically pitting them into a team of quirk ninjas. Now all these ninjas would have the same quirk, pretty much shadow manipulation. But for the outside, he would have picked two of the people with very strong quirks to be mushed into the quirk ninjas. All these ninjas has some sort of shadow quirk. Basically, they can blend their body into shadows, making themselves invisible in the dark or at nighttime. Now, basically, it was like sunset, so their powers worked slightly. Them phasing out in and out of the spectral plane, or in and out of the pretty much your sight. Basically, them kind of jumpering. You've seen the movie Jumper, how they're tied up, basically like that, but with shadow effects just coming off their body. And basically, they would have started running towards Deku at full speed, throwing shurikens, taking katanas out, slicing towards Deku. And Deku was about to take out 14 of them very quickly in a matter of minutes, about 5 minutes. Basically, it was a bunch of others, and it was about near the end of the fight, about 5 minutes later, or 10 minutes later, it would be about only 3 left. And these 3 would be one quirk ninja, and also the other 2 with different quirks. The other one would have had both of them would have had silver shurikens, pretty much, or silver pin shurikens on their ninja outfit. They would have took out 2 shurikens and would have started slicing them towards Deku. Deku dodging most of them, but him being cut by one of them by a knee, him noticing that one of them was supercharged for some reason. And the person that threw it was a quirk. He had a quirk that basically supercharged items to make them move faster than literal reality. Literally being able to flick any type of weapon, item, or any handhold weapon at incredible hypersonic speeds. Basically, Deku being very confused on how he, couldn't dodge that one, since he's been dodging items, weapons, and stuff from a young age. Him being able to dodge bullets. So Deku's been very trained into dodging and combat skill and kung fu. Basically, Deku being super confused. Anime, pretty much nani like stuff. Basically, Deku would have looked up, and the man would have been sprinting right towards Deku, and this other man with a different quirk would have had a quirk called Speed Dash. His quirk would be able to basically speed himself forwards through the air. Basically, him being able to slightly just, speed jump, fly type of. So basically, it's like if he jumps up and he releases a compact force of air all around the back of his body, all the way to the back of his hands, and basically blast himself forwards at sonic levels. Basically, him just being able to pretty much become a human rocket ball. But the farthest he can go with his speed dash is about 6 feet. So basically, he would have speed dashed towards Deku multiple times, and being able to speed dash pretty quickly with training. Now, Deku would have dodged most of his attacks, and eventually would have gotten into a hand wrestle with him, basically them clinching each other's hands and pushing each other back down and down. And before Deku would have pretty much let go, pretty much him dodging under the man's legs and breaking them with his nunchucks into pretty much his kneecaps, basically taking out the man pretty quickly. Now basically, pretty much other man would have thrown more barrages of shurikens, basically Deku noticing that the man's arms were moving at supersonic levels as well. Deku would have dodged most of the attacks, but eventually would have took out his pretty much a secret nunchuck in his backpack, a golden one, and would have thrown it, just straight up, just thrown it at the man's head, and would have knocked out the man very quickly. Now the man would have gone back up, not being knocked out yet, but Deku would have pretty much drive right towards the man, drop kicking him into the ground. The other assassin, the third one, would have been taller, would have been bigger, but not too big. Basically, the man looking more dominant, more well-trained, more vicious. Now, Deku would have gotten up, and he would have get into a fighting position, basically saying, "You can leave now, or I might just, well, hurt you." Basically, pretty much Deku running towards the man at full speed, about to just take him out. Basically, him not thinking that the man was anything close to pretty much, well, relatively dangerous, since he thought that he was just the other 14 or 15 other members of the Quirk Assassin League that basically, or the assassins that basically, just had shadow quirks that didn't enhance their strength at all. Basically, the man would have dodged Deku's attack and would have grabbed him by the neck and would have thrown him into the ground very hard, making Deku cough up blood. Deku would have gotten up being very confused, and the man would have taken off his ninja mask, basically revealing another mask. Basically, it being Death Dealer. Basically, Deku would have immediately recognized this face or this mask. Basically, the man taking off, just ripping off like straight up, pretty much just ripping off the whole assassin's outfit, revealing the Death Dealer outfit, the war armor, or pretty much the Death Dealer outfit. Basically, the man taking out a compacted silver bow staff and about to just straight up just knock the absolute life out of Deku, him charging up a very swift hit up Deku's head. Deku would have dodged it, throwing his nunchucks, both of them, into the Death Dealer's knees. He would have dodged them, jumping up and jumping back down on top of Deku, trying to take him out. Deku would have gotten out of his grasp, and they would have gone back and forth, fighting all around the campus, basically them eventually coming across at a big oak tree, and Deku getting kicked into it, basically him being pummeled down onto the tree. Deku would have dodged most of the attacks, also grabbing most of the fists and redirecting it towards Death Dealer. Death Dealer would have grabbed out one shuriken and would have stabbed Deku in the stomach, and would have thrown Deku on the floor, basically Deku falling down the hill they were on at the oak tree, and basically Deku would have gotten back up, ripping out the shuriken from his stomach and him fleeing. Basically, Death Dealer trying to look for Deku. Now, basically, that's going to be the main type of villain for now, at least when I hit part 5 of this What If. So basically, part 2 is going to be about Death Dealer coming after Deku again, and blah blah. So basically, Death Dealer is going to be a occurring villain, or basically assassin after Deku, over and over throughout until part 6 or 5. And then I'm going to introduce the Mandarin more in depth in part 5 or 6. Now basically, guys, I'm going to leave it up here. So basically, guys, I left off a little cliffhanger. Now part 2 will be about the beginning of, Deku and his whole Shuriken problem, and how he's going to show up to school the next day. Now basically, I'm going to leave it off here, guys. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. And please, guys, hit that notification bell. Because we both know YouTube doesn't really, let you see videos that much. So please hit the notification bell. And I hope I can see you guys tomorrow or later today. Now, guys, basically by the beginning of this video, so that I did do a time gap, I'm recording this second half, or the ending of this What If, or this part of the What If, like a day later. So basically today, I'm going to be uploading What If Wanda and Pietro were in Young Justice. And I also will be uploading What If Deku was Mystique Part 1. What if Deku was Mystique's son Part 1 tomorrow. Now, I'm also going to be uploading a Wolverine and a Wally West and also a Jason Todd custom figure review Basically, the Jason Todd and the Wily West are going to be made from scratch. So basically, going to be a tutorial on how you can make basically your own figures from scratch, and basically without using that not that much money. Also, I'm going to be uploading a video about making a custom Days of Future Past X-Men Wolverine. And yeah, guys, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys later, and have a blessed day.